progress. Guys, guess who
Got
we've got
it.
on the podcast? Julian, can you believe it?
Not really.
No.
It's surreal.
It's Steve Hall of Revive Stronger. Hey, Steve, how's it going?
It is going well. I enjoy podcasts. I actually really enjoy being interviewed as well and chatting shit, like we said we're going to do.
Great.
So it's good to be. I'm humbled to be here and to be your first guest. I know you've been doing these a while, and I really appreciate it. And actually, to give you a shout out initially. Not that I actually, you asked if I listened to them. I can't say I've listened to them, but I have listened to clips and I've seen your edits. And I can see your setups, and they're much better than mine were when I first started, massively. So yeah, credit to you for putting in the effort and the work for the podcast, because I can see it, and I appreciate it as a podcast host myself. And when I started, I can't believe people even listened when I started, to be honest.
Thank you, sir. Hey, Julian, did you just hear that? Like Steve Hall hasn't listened to our podcast yet. What a prick.
Morgan's like glowing now, but then he heard that you didn't listen to it already. But it's fine. It's fine.
I guess I have listened to it because I listened to clips. I just haven't listened to a full episode.
The clips are enough. The worst stuff is in there.
Clips are enough. They're the highlights, right? So, Steve, you just got like a 𝘁Vegeta tattoo. That's I literally discovered this like 10 minutes before the podcast. That's the sickest thing. I never thought I'd see Steve Hall with a tattoo. But you've gone straight into the deep end with, not only like an anime reference, but like a very integral part of the Dragon Ball Z lore, 𝘁Vegeta. What inspired you to get the 𝘁Vegeta tattoo?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's been on my mind for a few years, like thinking about, for more than like a couple of years, for a long time, I've always wanted something on me that's different. Like I'm quite a normal individual. Like I don't have any like standout features or characteristics. I'm not like super like outgoing or anything, but I've always just wanted something that's like, I don't know, like a weird haircut or something. I'm like, I don't know. It just never really appealed to me. And then I just started thinking about tattoos. And I was like, man, maybe I can just get a tattoo. And I wouldn't say I'm your stereotypical, actually, no, I probably am your stereotypical tattoo guy, because it's like bodybuilder. Like how many bodybuilders have tattoos? Like tons. So yeah, I just decided, and I was always put off because I was like, am I going to want a tattoo that's like when I'm 60 years old, 70 years old? I look back at it and I'm like, But as I've got older, I've actually got more into anime, more into the Dragon Ball Z, and like rewatching it, I'm just like, man, I'm never going to get sick of this shit. Like it's fucking epic.
Fucking way.
And I also, I don't know, as you get older, I don't know, you mature and you realize these are your prime years. And I don't know, I don't want to look back and be like, oh, I wish I did that thing or whatever. I'm just like, it doesn't harm anyone, it doesn't do anything. And yeah, just decided to go for it. And I've also learned to appreciate Vegeta. Anyone who knows Dragon Ball Z, not Julian, but you might know a little bit about Vegeta. And I've come to appreciate him more and more. And I think the reason a lot of people like him, like when I first was watching, I was a Goku, like loved Goku. It's like, why? Vegeta's just a dick. But as you actually learn him as a character and you see his character development, you're just like, man, this is me. This is the underdog. He's the guy that just fucking keeps trying, even though he gets shut down every time. And 𝘁Vegeta was just like the ultimate of that. Like he will do anything to get more power and to be better than someone else. And I was like, I like that mentality that he had. And even though he'd like given up everything to 𝘁 or whatever, the kind of the witch doctor, he still had control. He was still like, you may have all of these things about me, or what I can't think of the quote, but I still have I still have my pride. I'm still a Saiyan. And
yes.
Yeah, it's just,
I remember that scene. I've still got my pride, baby. Yeah. Such a good scene, man. That Majin Buu saga, a lot of people bashed on it, but fucking hell, when he went Majin for the first time and he took control back from Babidi, it was like, oh my God, this is the power we're dealing with. And now your forearm just looks insane, man. It just looks insane. Love it.
I need to. Here you go. I'll go to. It looks best when I come like this.
Oh, God damn it! That's insane.
It is cool. Man. Morgan, you have one as well, right?
I've got
a tattoo on your forearm that you got a few months ago.
I thought you had a tattoo.
Here we go. All right. So, Jesus, I gotta kind of push myself up.
Yeah, it's awkward. A few clients have asked to see it, and I'm like, it's really awkward to try and show you. Like, you can't just go like this.
Hey guys, here we go. Oh, that's better. So it's like, I kind of. I won't divulge, but the tattoo artist I'd been following for a very long time happened to be in London whilst I was there. So I was like, hey, I can't pass this opportunity up. Yeah. She lives in Korea. So I was like, holy shit, I'm here and you're there. Done.
Wow.
So I said, hey, I want like the wave, a sun, a dragon. Let's make it happen. And then it so happened to happen. So there we are. Not to derail this and focus on my tattoo because Steve's is amazing. But we did touch upon the fact that you were interested in how Vegeta was the underdog, right? And I think we can perhaps tie this in to what initiated Revive Stronger in the first place. Was coming from a place of being a very prominent figure in I think the long distance kind of endurance running scene at the time, right? Is that correct?
I definitely wasn't a prominent figure, but I did do
yes.
I ran.
yeah, cool. Long distance runner, right? Ran long distance, and at the time, perhaps in the peak of your performance, you encountered, pardon me, rather, I say rather significant, a very significant accident which occurred mid run, right? So what was the story of that? What happened during your run that caused this incident that I said essentially we'll get to it eventually, manifested in Revive Stronger becoming what it is today?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I was like jack of all trades at this time. I would do runs. I was actually like, as far as like genetics are set for like being good at sports, I was always pretty decent, but at school, I never like took it to GCSE, or I wasn't doing like physical education at university because I was bullied. So bullies often are the jocks, and I just didn't want to be. I was like, I'm going to do art. I literally did art instead of PE, even though I was very gifted at various, I was all right at some things, but that didn't help me. They just bullied me further because I was like, I don't know, it's a threat or something. So yeah, I never took it that far, but I did enjoy going to university, and I was doing like rowing club, football club, and running. I also was going to the gym at this time as well, but like hitting my head against a brick wall, as you might imagine, not really eating well or like feeding myself enough, and also trying to do too much. But one of the runs I would like to do was this 10-kilometer run around campus. And I had my Garmin watch on, like I had the heart rate monitor, the whole like shebang. And on the Garmin, that's this really cool feature on Garmin watches. You have like you can see a shadow of your previous best. And you can like, as you're running, you can see how far away you are from your shadow. And every time I was like, oh, beat this shadow, which gives you a bit of insight into my mentality. And I was coming to some traffic lights, which were flashing amber. And I didn't check the road. I just fucking legged it because I was on for an all-time PB. And I literally must have been 300 meters away from the end, from my flat where I was staying. And unfortunately, when I went for it, I then looked right, and there was a white van that hit me then in that moment. So I suffered like scarring. You probably see it on camera somewhere. Which elbow is it? I always forget, actually. I think it's this one. Yeah, there you go. So you can see that scar here.
Oh, right underneath.
So I suffered. Yeah, so it's a little, like tiny little scar there on the elbow. I even forget which elbow it's on, quite evidently. And then like scarring, I've got it on my back. You can see it on some of my back shots, actually. If you like, now you probably look at some of my back shots when I'm on stage, you'll be like, oh yeah, I can see that, or what have you. You can see some scarring there, which is basically me like skidding across the tarmac.
Shit.
So yeah. But then I also had like a fractured skull. So that there were like the short-term injuries, and I was in hospital for a few days. And then they let me out, thinking I just suffered like those minor injuries, really. But then once I got home, I kind of, that night, I had basically kind of a panic attack. I don't know if I was seizuring. I can't really remember it vividly, but I was like puking up a lot of whatever I'd eaten that day, like having a panic. I can vividly remember panicking, just being like, I was not making sense to my parents, and I was just like stressed out, and just, it was not right. So they drove me to an A&E. And when I was in A&E, then I was then kept there for about a month because they did some bloods and they found I had very low sodium levels. And I don't know, people know, like, I don't know, but keep it to bodybuilders, like bodybuilders fuck up their peak weeks because they mess around with electrolytes, and they can die because they get too low in kind of sodium or essential like electrolytes, and have that balance completely out of whack. So they found I had like ridiculously low sodium levels. So they kept me in because I was at risk of kind of seizuring at points. And if I seizured and there wasn't someone there to take care of me, I could pass. Like you can die from this. So
Wow.
I was then in hospital for about a month, just lying there. It was so utterly depressing, like horrendous, especially from someone, and you guys will both get this. Like if you've got an injury, even deloading is hard enough, let alone being like lying in a hospital bed, unable to like just don't have the energy to move. And actually, I didn't even like for the first, like, I don't know, a few weeks, I didn't have the mental capacity to really think heavily. Like I couldn't concentrate on, remember, you had to pay to watch TV. I couldn't concentrate on like Pokemon. I was trying to watch Pokemon on these TV screens. I couldn't concentrate on it. And yeah, it was a horrible time. But kind of, I normalized those levels and came out, and I was just not in a good way. But I wanted to get back to doing some sort of exercise and physical activity. I can remember initially just trying to do walks. Like I do fast-paced walks. This is literally all I could do. I did get back into the gym, and I couldn't barbell bench press the bar. Like I couldn't do it. And this was after coming back, and like I was in reasonably decent shape, but when I came out of hospital, I'd lost, I think I'd lost almost 20 pounds of not muscle, 20 pounds of weight. So I'd lost also like basically all the newbie gains I'd built over those last years, like kind of half-assed in the gym and not doing it quite right. I'd lost all of that. So I wanted to build it back up, build up some confidence. And the gym was a place I felt like I could do that because I was in control. And that's something I really like about bodybuilding. It maybe is to a degree unhealthy of me in some ways, but it gives me control. I enjoy that aspect of bodybuilding because I felt completely out of control of my body for so long after that accident. I was also on medication to kind of keep my sodium levels in check. But even having normalized my sodium levels, getting off that medication, and like I built back a lot of muscle, but I kind of learned the wrong things. I kind of searched up the bodybuilding like bro forums, and they're like, bulk up. If you just eat clean food, you're kind of put on clean muscle and you won't gain fat. So I put on so much weight when I came out in that first year. I put on like 40 pounds within less than a year. It was just ridiculous. So I gained back a lot of the muscle I'd lost, and probably more, but also tons of body fat. So I wasn't happy at all at that point. And I actually developed hard lumps under my nipples. And I was worried that it was like, I don't know, cancerous. I had no idea what it was. I was completely confused. I went in and they did I forget what the test is. It's like when you have a baby, they do the gel on the belly, and they then use the whatever the
lobotomy.
To like, is it a lobotomy?
No, a nipple test.
That's where they pull like a bit of your brain out. No, it's not,
shit.
It's not
I forget the test. It's like when they're looking at babies, like they use that. But anyway, they did that over my nipples or whatever. And they're like, no, that's gyno. They did a blood test, and my testosterone levels were like plummeted, like completely low. In hindsight, I have no idea how like thinking about it now. I'm like, you don't need to know much to have known that was gyno and you have like no testosterone, because I had zero. Like they asked me questions. They're like, oh, when have you last been like intimate with a woman or something? I was like, women? Like, I don't give a shit. Like I had no libido. Like I had none of that. And this is me like coming on almost like 20 years old. And I had like very little facial hair, like very little body hair, just like not that kind of many male characteristics. And certainly for that age, like no libido. And I also wasn't a happy person at all. So like, I wouldn't say I wasn't clinically depressed, but it was an incredibly depressing time for me, going through all of that. And basically like very isolated from the world, because I wasn't doing all the clubs I was doing before. I was at university, but couldn't go out drinking or anything like that because I was on fluid restrictions because of my electrolyte balance. And I lost a lot of friends that I had because they continued to live their life, and I couldn't continue to live my life like I was. So I became a bit of a hermit. And it was a really depressing time. Like it makes me almost want to cry when I think about it now. And I haven't never talked about it in this much depth before, actually, but I thought I might give you some more in-depth stuff.
Well, thank you for sharing, sir. Thank you very much.
I can remember saying to my mum at times, like, I literally, like, I want to die. I don't want to be on this earth anymore. Like, I'm done. And so anyway, that out of the way, I saw an endocrinologist, and they were like, we need to get your testosterone levels back up. You're like clinically low. Let's get you on some like testosterone replacement therapy.
Testogel.
So the one I remember is Testogel. I think I had one before that as well. that was in like a syringe, but it was always gel that I rubbed onto my body. But testo gel is the one I remember, like you said, which actually I've looked back at it and I remember it's a laughable amount of testosterone that's in there, like completely laughable compared to like what you hear. Like it's so minuscule. But the crazy thing is that despite being minuscule, within weeks of taking that, the gyno was dying down. I started to grow a bit more body hair, facial hair started coming, and I felt so much better. And during that period of time as well, I laugh because my libido went like wild. It was just ridiculous. Like I was like from nothing to then being like a ridiculously horny teenager, like through the day. It was just like crazy changes that were going on initially.
Nice.
Energy levels were better. Yeah, all of that was happening. And it was in that time as well, I continued, as I said, I was going to the gym, trying to learn more. And I stumbled across 𝘲𝗏𝗃𝗏's website. I stumbled across Matt August, 3DMJ, and I found natural bodybuilding. I was like, holy fuck, like this is what I do. This is what I want to compete in eventually. And I was on the testo gel. I was like, what? I can't be on this and compete. So I asked my doctor if I could come off. And he was like, we can try it, but normally people are on this for life, but your situation was very unique in that they think it was a bruised pituitary gland that eventually healed. I'm not sure. But yeah, I came off and I managed to sustain low normal levels. And then I emailed a load of federations in the UK to see if any of them would be happy to take me on to compete. And a couple came back and I competed in those like a year or so later. And that to me, and my reason, and you guys will know this, like as you coach someone to stage, you want to know their reason why. And my literal reason why was I want to prove to myself that I'm recovered from the head injury. If I can get into the best shape of my life, extreme levels of condition. I knew there was issues with like testosterone function and everything as you got down there. I was like, fuck it, I want to fucking do this thing. If I can do that, come out and recover, I'm over this accident. It doesn't hold anything on me anymore. It's not going to be a shadow that's behind me, and I can move on with my life. And I did it. And going through that contest prep and getting into the best shape of my life, I was like, man, I got to do this for other people. If I've been able to come from like ground zero to take my body to like the best shape it's ever been in before and like come through all of that, I can help people who are like just struggling with various things. So yeah, that led me to want to be a one-on-one personal trainer. So through that time I had a job and I was like educating myself to become a PT on the weekends, doing courses. Now I became a one-on-one PT during the time I competed, but very quickly moved to online coaching because I was like, sitting behind a computer is much easier than standing up on the gym floor and helping people. Little did I know how important NEAT was. Like I just completely ignorant to any of that. So I would just sit down. I'd be helping the kind of kids from surrounding schools, like just like with their training, with their nutrition. They saw me get into a crazy shape. And they're like, man, I want that. I had the nickname Compound Guy, because no one did compound lifts in the gym. And I was doing like squat, bench, deadlift, all these. And they're like, man, why are you doing those all the time? So I just started getting results with them. And so I moved gradually onto online coaching and just decided to make that what I'm going to do. I moved out from home and moved in with Charlotte and kind of never looked back and started Revive Stronger from there. So that's where the name comes from, coming from kind of, like I said, not a great place and reviving stronger into future. And yeah, I've never looked back and just continued to try and share good information, talk to smart people, bring them on the podcast, share that with more people and help others, whether that mean competing or just getting into better shape, taking control of their life a little bit more, where maybe they feel like they feel out of control.
Nice.
Well, sorry, I rambled big time.
Well, we may as well end the podcast there because that's literally everything that's on the first
everything
page.
Came out naturally and it was all due to chasing a personal best, It's kind of crazy that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. From the underdog, again, tying it back to the Vegeta thing, I'm in control of this shit. Regardless of what you thrust upon me, 𝗶𝗶𝗃𝗏, your spells and all that bollocks, I'm going to come through and say, hey, I'm in control here. And that's where Revive Stronger came from ultimately, right? I've gone through all of this shit and turmoil in my life. But despite what's been thrust against me, whether it be a fucking white van or my lack of testosterone, I'm going to come out on top. So how long were you on testosterone replacement therapy essentially for?
About a year.
Okay.
That's what it, like, I think it was a little bit under a year that I was on it for.
Did you notice any kind of difference when you came off? Was there a kind of, I guess, like a transitional period? Because I know, speaking personally, I've been on it for the past like 4 or 5 years now, and I can't imagine coming off it, because I think it's self-inflicted with the SARM use and all that bollocks that I've disclosed recently. What's it like coming off? Perhaps in your context, in those first few weeks, maybe the first few months, was there a noticeable difference between your well-being, your libido? What was that period like for you?
So it is now over 10 years since I did it. So my memories are not what they were.
Yeah.
But I think if there was anything significant, I'd have thought I'd remember it. And I think because we tapered the dose down to just like a sustaining, relatively like normal, natural levels, and I didn't ever go into like too high. And then when I came off, I was sustaining normal kind of levels. I think at most, just like I don't remember anything dropping off. I just remember like just kind of feeling myself, and maybe slightly less libido. That's probably the main thing. Like that kind of like just wasn't relentless. But that, even as we normalized the doses, I went through the therapy, that kind of was a fairly normal point at that. So no, thankfully, I think because I've had people reach out to me being like, I want to get off. Like, can you help me? And my situation was just such a strange one with the head injury that I'm not sure most people like yourself are in a position to be able to come off and be healthy. Like you'd be physically, mentally unhealthy if you were to come off it. Whereas thankfully, I've been all right.
Yeah, kids don't buy SARMs unless you please don't buy SARMs, especially if you're not like 21 years old like I did, because it will fuck you up. I love rubbing gel in my fucking chest every day for the past 5 years. It's great. Don't do it. It's not worth it.
Don't rub other people. Like,
don't rub other people. You gotta stand there statically for like 15 minutes. Babe, stay away from me. Okay. I don't want you to get a hairy chin. That's the last thing on my agenda. Stop touching
Morgan
me.
hates me. Like next time I'm over, he can just like when I'm sleeping, rub some on my face, and then it's like,
get it right into your eyeballs as well. Why have I got pink eye, Morg? I'm sleeping over in this Airbnb with you. Why are my eyes so red every night? I don't know. Don't know. Just no idea. So you said you've discovered then, when you started placing more of an interest, I guess, on your resistance training, building muscle, right? You discovered Lyle McDonald, 3DMJ. What are some of the things you learned through those versus perhaps what you were doing prior to that kind of, I guess, educational knowledge kind of expansion that you delved into?
Sure. So the cool thing is this is actually fairly well documented on my YouTube channel. Not that I encourage anyone to check those old vlogs that I've done.
Do it.
But this is where I, like, from a training perspective, I trialed Lyle McDonald's general bulking routine. So that was very much focused on progressive overload, big compound core lifts, training muscle groups multiple times across the week, versus like talking to the biggest guy in my gym, who was just like, oh, if you can train 5 days a week, you can just train every muscle group once and like just repeat that. So I was just following like bro splits before that, really. And then with 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗃, he was very much someone I looked up to probably I don't know if I can say unhealthy degree. I didn't do anything weird, but I just really looked up to him. Like I bought like, he had Vibram 5 fingers. I'm buying Vibram 5 fingers. He had Converse. I'm buying Converse. Like everything. I just like copied this guy. And so he was doing like Jim Wendler's 5-3-1. Like he was big on that. And so I did Jim Wendler's 5-3-1 because 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗃 was doing it, and he's in the shape I want to be in. So I kind of copied him there. And then from Lyle McDonald as well, one of the huge things for me was finding flexible dieting. So initially when I came across that, I was like, no way. Like there's no way you can like hit macro numbers from various foods and it'd be all right. I have to stick to my clean foods. And I was at the point where my sister and mum were going to have like a chat with me because they're like, you've got an eating disorder. Like,
wow.
I was very like orthorexic. If I couldn't eat my foods, like I wouldn't eat them. So we'd go to like my cousins. I'd bring Tupperware with me and I wouldn't eat their food. Awful behavior, like really, really not cool. And I don't know how my mum let me get away with it. Probably because I was just like, they know I'd get mad, like go crazy. So yeah, thankfully I found flexible dieting. I started incorporating more of that into my diet, and I was like, man, I can actually do this like long term. So, and from following that kind of more principled programming that was more evidence-based, I started seeing better results. And so that really encouraged me to like think of natural bodybuilding as something I can actually do, because yeah, at the start I'd look at someone like 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗃 and I'd just be like, is he actually natural? Because I just couldn't believe it. But as I started kind of trusting the process more and learning more, it became more and more a kind of tenable thing that I thought I could achieve. So yeah, those were the main things I kind of picked up initially.
𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗃 is in fucking insane shape. Like I remember first stumbling upon him like in the early kind of days of Google searching like bodybuilding, muscle growth. Like August is there. Like I'm sure he's done like a photo shoot where he's like under a bridge or something, and he's got his shades on. He's got like this t-shirt. It's like, holy shit! Is this like been photoshopped? This dude's abs are just insane. How is this guy so lean?
Apparently, I'm sure he just posted a photo on the 𝗀𝗃, bodybuilding 𝗀𝗃, and someone picked it up and like this guy, you know,
ran with it, right? God, he's in fabulous shape. Yeah. I think a true testament to what can be achieved naturally if you've got, well, along with Steve, let's not forget the fact that we have Steve Hall on the podcast here as he rolls his eyes. Steve Hall, 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗃, testaments to natural bodybuilding. These guys, right? Fucking hell. I think far too often, and not to derail this, I think even in as people now, us three, you know, who've been in the lifting scene for like several years, even new kids growing up now with the amount of information available still believe that you need to be on gear in order to achieve something, you know, mildly, I guess, comparable to what is out there in the real world, right? I know like so many people in the gyms I used to train at, just like as soon as they start lifting weights, it's like, okay, drugs. It's like, what? Why? I don't know how people fall into these circles, right? What are some things people can do maybe when they're first starting out in their lifting career? Perhaps, you know, with hindsight, with your own perspective, what are some things people can start doing? Perhaps with the perspective of, I need to maximize my muscle growth now, otherwise I'm insignificant and I need to jump on gear. What are some things people can start doing as soon as they start lifting up weights to begin maximizing their natural potential?
Really good question. And yeah, hindsight's a brilliant thing, because I only actually have one major injury still that I developed because I didn't know any better. And it's called a slap tear. Basically, it's like a tendon in your shoulder that kind of gives you shoulder stability when you're in this sort of position. So I've had that tear still, but that very interestingly happened very close to the accident that I had. So it actually recovered enough, or the inflammation came down while I was in hospital and couldn't lift because I kept trying to push through it. So I'm actually meant to have keyhole surgery on it, but it's not kind of held me back. So I don't have that, but I could, like, the only reason I got to that, like the resting in hospital was the only thing that stopped me from being in a position where I would have just kept pushing, and I'd eventually have had to have surgery, and then I don't know how long I would have been out. But yeah, you don't want to get to the point where you get injured where you're going to take yourself out of the gym, because the best natural bodybuilders are the ones who have been doing this the longest time and who have been consistent the most. And if you're getting injured, like, you can't be doing it. Like, you're taking yourself literally out of the gym. And I think a lot of people discount injuries, and you think when you're younger you're invincible. That's certainly what I thought. So if I had niggles or if something felt off, I was just like, nah, like, I'm meant to be doing this movement and it's meant to be good for me, so I just do it. And working through those things is not smart. And you can get away with it much more when you're younger, but that is what you're doing. You're getting away with it, and eventually something's going to break the camel's back there. So definitely focusing on kind of quality, technique, and form is something I wish I'd done when I first got into the gym, which I definitely didn't do. I kind of glad in some ways to have the footage to look back on and be so kind of cringy. But in the same instance, I wish I had put more focus on that. I think when you get into bodybuilding initially, that's not the focus, because you see like the sexy, cool things online, and technique, it may be having a bit of a resurgence of being sexy and cool through a few kind of big influences. But generally you see people like the IFBB pros who very often have terrible technique, and they're just fucking going ham and going crazy in the gym. And so you kind of just like, oh, that must be how you build muscles, so I just go ham and crazy. And I wish, like I said, hindsight's a brilliant thing. I wish I'd focused on form and technique. But I think one thing that I did have in the right place was enjoyment in the process. So for me, it wasn't a case of like, you know, looking in the mirror every single day being like, why aren't I there yet? It was a case of, I just enjoy going to the gym and forming that routine and habit. Like, I'd be way more consistent than other peers in my year and my friends. They'd skip the gym for a couple of weeks, whereas I'd always be there. I'd always be doing it. And I just crave and love routine, and like that works really well for me. But I think if there was something I was going to encourage a new lifter, it would be to fall in love with that process, fall in love with like what it's giving you, the kind of pushing yourself and progressing. And that's also another thing I did really well. And I kind of gave that insight into my character from the run, where I had to always beat myself. And I did eventually beat myself into the ground with this methodology as well, also with the van, but with this methodology in the gym, where every time I'd be trying to beat the reps or the load I did last week. And I'd always be pushing pretty much like failure and beyond in every which way I could. That also led to the injury. So there is kind of a sweet spot there, as we know now. Like you don't need to, like I thought in my head, it was like, if I don't touch a new weight today, if I don't improve today, I'm not growing muscle. And we know now that's not what is the ignition for muscle growth. That's more of the kind of the equation and the kind of you've grown muscle if you get to that. But everything you're doing before that is still overloading. It's still productive work. So I wish I'd had just, I guess, someone more experienced to guide me at that stage. I think it's so valuable to have like a mentor at that period of time. And I didn't. I just had like the bodybuilding folklore where it was like, go hard or go home. I literally had a t-shirt that had go hard or go home on it that I'd wear to the gym with pride.
Amazing.
And I would just like literally run myself into the ground until I started regressing lifts or I'd get injured and then I'd have to pull back. So that is where, when I stumbled across 531, Jim Wendler's 531, that had deloads built in. And I can't say I stuck to them properly, but I started to understand it a little bit better. It was the same with the sets that you used to do. I can't remember how they worked out exactly, but they were kind of like sub-maximal, and then you'd have an AMRAP. And I basically would never do any of the sub-maximal stuff. I'd just be continuously pushing. Like, I was like, what's the point of this stuff? Okay, so I wish I had a better, clearer understanding of the value of fatigue management and holding yourself back a little bit to get more in future. And I slowly started to learn those things, but it was more of a case of, for me, do it wrong and then learn from that lesson. Do it wrong, learn from that lesson. So at least that's what I'd encourage people to do as well, is like, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Like I've got to where I am today because I was that person that wasn't afraid to do mistakes and just push, but do learn. If you don't learn, then it's like,
then you're
not a good thing.
Steve just savaged himself. He compared himself, like he compared his ability to push himself into the ground in the gym with him being plowed down by a white van on the streets. Steve savaged himself. I love that, Steve. But I guess that's a part of accepting what's happened, right? And I think, like you said, accepting your mistakes in the past, whether it be your inability to deload or downloading a program in which you're meant to like not go max all the time, like myself and Julian have done. Yeah, this is your deload week. Do not do anything stupid. I'll just max out and then wonder why 6 weeks into the program, everything hurts and I've not made any progress. I think the ability, like you've said, to accept and understand and reflect upon your mistakes is the driving force ultimately behind bettering yourself. And I think I want to bring attention to the kind of the deload thing here, right? Because I know when I first started lifting, and I'm sure when Julian first started lifting as well, like the idea of, hey, you've got to take this week where you just kind of like go easy and give your body a chance to breathe. It's like, are you mad? Are you mad, Internet Forum? Are you mad, T-Nation? What the fuck are you talking about? No, I want to go balls to the wall all the fucking time. And then, look, is it any wonder that after the programmed deload week, you feel like shit and your numbers are declining? What is the importance of programming in these periods of lower volume, lower intensity? Why is that such an integral part of maximizing our muscle growth as a physique development individual?
Really good question. So it all comes from Hans Seil, if I'm saying that correctly. I'm not sure. Sorry, he won't be listening. I don't even know if he's still alive, like, to be honest. But it comes from his general adaptation syndrome. So GAS, people might have heard of it. So this is the case of like, you impose a stress, you see a response, an adaptation. And if you keep just stressing the system, it's going to eventually get into like an alarm phase and you're going to see bad things happen. And so every single biological system works via this principle. Like if you don't overload it, stress it, it's not going to have to adapt and respond. But if you keep overloading and stressing it, it's not going to be able to adapt and respond, and it's just going to regress and get worse. So through our weight training, we are overloading, like doing our hard training sets and reps, and we're looking to progress that overload over the number of weeks. But we get to a point where the body can't keep up with this. You do develop an amount of fatigue through those weeks because you're not mitigating it all, because you're continuously trying to do more, where if you keep going, something will flatten you. So you'll either get injured or you just start regressing. And so you take a kind of, you back off, you take a step back to take 2 steps forward again in future. So that's kind of where it comes from in terms of like the importance of deloading, is to mitigate the fatigue that you've accumulated over a number of weeks so that your performance can be in a better position again. So yeah, unfortunately, we can't just continue to do that forever. And especially as we get stronger and fitter, we develop, like, it's even harder to overload, and that overloading is even more fatiguing. So we might find we have to deload more frequently, even when we become stronger and better at doing these things. And yeah, I think a lot of us get to the point of accepting deloads when we get to the point where we just keep pushing, and either we get injured or we get a setback or we start regressing and we're kind of confused. And then we come across a deload and we try it and we're like, like this works really well. And the more times you do it and you understand it, the more you respect the deload. And you kind of almost, well, when you initially get into it, you're like, man, thank God it's deload week. By the end of it, you're then ravenous. So physiologically you're recovering, but psychologically as well. Like, we've all been there where you've been training hard for a long period of time. Like I said, especially when you're advanced, it gets very hard and challenging. You do finish with like training very, very close to failure at your max limits. Like, I can't even imagine trying to do this again for another week. I need to kind of settle back and, I don't know, focus on some other things in my life.
Yeah, let's get a haircut, or just like go to the movies, man. Fucking hell. Smoke a joint. Christ, I don't want to keep pushing this shit anymore. What are some things people should look out for? Maybe as new trainees, again, that are just kind of first pushing into the realms of maximizing their physique development. What are some things that perhaps are indicative of one needing to say, hey, I need to deload, I need to back off this? What are some things in those lines that you think would be best, I guess, passed on ultimately to those who are beginning their physique development endeavor?
I think objectively, it's when your performance is starting to plateau, either like you're repeating the week's performance or maybe even slightly worse than the last week, or you're looking at your performance of the week you've just done and you're like, I can't even imagine trying to repeat that next week. That's kind of an objective marker where your fitness and fatigue are starting to like match up. So they're at the point where that means your performance is plateauing, or if fitness is lower than your fatigue levels, then you're going to see a drop in performance. And that's based off the fitness fatigue model. People can kind of look that up and it will give them a really great visual representation of kind of what the importance of the deload is there. Less objective ones, more subjective ones are possibly more irritable, moody, because you're just super stressed. And in addition to that, you might be sleeping slightly worse. You're kind of finding you're waking up multiple times. And that's, again, just a stress response. You can't get as good quality sleep. You might find your hunger is like, interestingly, research tends to show when you're overreaching, hunger is not as high. So you actually like not feeling like you've got a good appetite. I don't tend to find that. I sometimes find I get hungrier in the week before a deload, strangely enough. So I think some people get divergent things on that. So maybe if something just feels different, but if you're getting any kind of slight niggles, like, I don't know, sometimes like things can just, like joints and things can just feel a bit like, oh, that's just feeling a bit uncomfortable, and just generally feeling quite fatigued through the day. So like if your energy levels aren't as good, that sort of thing, there's some of the more subjective things to look at. And if your motivation to like hit the gym, like you said, like, fuck this shit, like I need to go smoke a joint. If you're finding normally you're very motivated to go and do your sessions, and now you're just like, man, I can't even imagine going in there doing something. And maybe you get under the bar and you're just like, man, this all just feels heavy. Like subjectively, it just feels real heavy. Probably a sign that you might be due to back off. Yeah.
So I guess desire to train, if things are feeling heavier than they should. And I think there's usually, from experience, and I'm sure you've experienced it yourself, like even if you feel as though you should be pushing the numbers you should be with regards to your programming, there are going to come days or weeks where it's like, Jesus Christ, did I just put like fucking Pluto on my back to try and squat it. I'm only meant to be squatting like 100 kilos. It feels like I'm about to crush my bones into dust, right? Even if that comes prematurely in your training cycle, it's probably a sign, provided everything else is on point, that maybe things aren't aligning themselves in such a way that you can start, that you can continue to maximize your muscle growth. Like Julian and I have been like discussing before you came on, kind of our like stress when it comes to just like daily existence, right? Just like existing, going to work, like having financial, having family, relationship, kind of, nicotine responsibilities that are all manifesting in different levels of stress in your body. It's not always going to be, right, a reflection of what's happening in the gym. Sometimes maybe it's worth taking a step back and being like, hey, given the context of my life right now, like fucking hell, like my nan's just died. Should I really be expecting to push into like the 5th week of my training program, given the context of how much stress is manifesting in me right now? How much of an impact does external stress have on your ability to maximize your muscle growth? Because I think a lot of people don't really understand how much the very fact that stress is stress, and your body's ability to distinguish between those kind of streams of stress is well, it's essentially indistinguishable, right? How much of an impact have you found from personal experience does external stress have on your ability to maximize your performance in the gym?
Massively. Yeah, you're completely right in terms of stress is stress. So a great analogy I like, I can't remember where I got this from, but I think you'll probably recognize it, is thinking about kind of your stress tolerance like a bathtub, say, and everything's filling it. So water's filling it, that's your stress. So it's like lifestyle stress, you've got training stress, diet stress, all of these factors, they're all filling it because stress is stress. And you don't want to get to the brim and start spilling over because bad things are going to happen. And you can only drain it at a certain rate as well. So some things like, I don't know, you can go for a walk, or you can have a rest day, or you can have really good sleep. This is going to drain it. But if you're filling it all up, like, I don't know, you're in your overreaching week, you've been dieting for 2 months, like you said, someone close to you has just died, if you're a stressful week at work, like it can suddenly just fill up where it's like it's going to spill over. And so you're like, deload. Like you need to remove some sort of stress, maybe even take a diet break, you stop the deficit for a week, what have you. And it can massively impact things. I have a client at the moment actually that makes me think about it, and he has a very stressful job, and it impacts his ability to even get a good night's sleep quite often through the week. He quite often has to deload every 4th week in the mesocycle, and he is literally the only client I've actually ever had that's had to deload so frequently. And it's not because he's like super advanced, because he's developing so much fatigue, because he's really strong. He's quite like intermediate, but because he has such a stressful lifestyle and isn't dissipating those stresses either, he's unable to accumulate stress within the gym for as long. And that will short exchange his results. Like he's only accumulating for 3 weeks. Like that's cutting his window of opportunity of growth versus someone who can do 5-6 weeks of training before they need that deload. So it's unfortunate. And I've explained it to him because he sometimes gets frustrated. I'm like, just like realize this is a time where you're prioritizing work, and that's fine. And maybe down the line when work can take a back seat, or maybe you've got a promotion where you can like get your other people to do stuff, that's fine. So yeah. And another example is like, if you're looking to compete, for example, hugely stressful endeavor for like 6 months of your life, probably 2 months where it's really stressful. You don't want to be getting like married that year, or having kids for the first time, or having kids full stop. Like if you're having new kids brought into the world, moving house, for example, super stressful. Like I can't even imagine doing some of these things. So for me personally, thankfully, I have that knowledge. So it hasn't really impacted my results for a long time. And also I try and like manage these things. So an example actually could be this tattoo, which is a stressful thing on your body, and quite an isolated stress as well, in terms of like, I wouldn't want to go and do like, I don't know, forearm curls or something today or yesterday. But I planned it in a deload. So this week I'm deloading. On Sunday was when I got it. And then I'm gonna have a week to mitigate that stress so I can come back into things. So if you can have foresight, you can plan around these things within your life, that can be a great way to really capitalize on your gains. But yeah, you're completely right. Like you only have to look into some of the small amounts of like, lots of sleep research that's out there, and you can see how much that impacts your ability to grow muscle or lose fat and hampers your results quite heavily. And a lot of people have the kind of philosophy, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And the horrible fact is it may shorten your lifespan by having that attitude.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's funny, but not funny.
No, dude, you're going to die very soon if that's your attitude. Yeah. I'd rather live like a lion than die like a sheep. It's like, fuck me. Do you want to live like 18 years as a lion? Like 6 years of which you can't even remember because you were like 0 to 6 years old? No. I think it's a very important topic to raise with
maybe it's a bit of an underrated aspect of coaching that a lot of people don't think about. Like when you have something happen in your life, then it might be time to chill with the training, right? Or not just push through all the time. If someone's deep in a calorie deficit and their aunt dies, who they loved very much, it's impacting things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, in comparison to the world of social media, right? Everyone's on the money all the time, especially when you can, not to drop any names into this, right? But there are people that we've discussed on the podcast before that their life is like, look at my physique, look at it all the time. I have sponsorships based on my physique all the time. I'm shredded. And the immediate comparison that one will draw when they first start pursuing the life of physique development is, hey, look at this dude, like fucking living in Ibiza, living in Dubai, living it up, right? My nan's just died and I can't keep training. Well, I'm a failure, clearly. I clearly can't, I've not got the capacity to continue my resistance training right now at the level I need to in order to maximize my muscle growth. Therefore, fuck it. I'm worthless. I'm not worth it. I need to jump on gear. I think, and not to keep drawing this back to one's desire to start pursuing the world of performance enhancing drugs, but it's almost a way with which we need to identify how life isn't always going to be set up in such a way for you to maximize what it is that you're trying to achieve. And I think when it comes to resistance training and muscle growth, there always seems to be this kind of all or nothing mentality with a lot of new trainees. But it's like, guys, fuck me. We most of us, like 99% of us, are people that live normal lives and have shit to deal with. We've got to take a step back from time to time, right? And be like, hey, right, for like the next 4 weeks, I'm just going to chill out, because for the past like 6 years, I've been crushing it. Like for this mild inconvenience, which is occurring right now in comparison to what's been happening for the past 6 years, I can take a break. Life isn't going to just derail. I'm not going to lose all of my gains. Just take a step back, right? And just understand that your efforts up until this point aren't going to be degraded by by the necessity for you to take a break, right? Take a break, guys. Understand when you need to take a step back, whether it be with your training numbers, for example, whether it be the fact that your nan's died, whatever the fuck it may be, your dog's just shat all over your bed again, whatever happens, right? just chill out. It's all right. You've got the rest of your life ahead of you, unless you are going for this all or nothing nature. And you're only going to live for like another 10 years, in which case, just go hell for leather. Throw all of your relationships out the window. Who gives a fuck? Because all you care about is maximizing your muscle growth. But for most of us, take a chill pill, right? Take a chill pill. When was your last deload, Steve? What did it entail? What does it look like in the context of your regular muscle growth pursuits with your resistance training?
I'd just say one thing to note what you said there as well. If you are actually looking to maximize muscle growth, you also have to take steps back. Like you have to have downtime. Like you actually, I think a lot of people have that. I don't know. They try and do every single little percentage point. I don't know. One that always comes to mind is like monitoring their blood glucose like every hour through the day or something. And it's just like, is the stress and hassle of that really giving you more, or are you just doing that because you feel like more is better? Doing like having a, don't know, like a Whoop band or like an Aura ring or something like very expensive. Like it's a cool tool that you can look at. But like, and I'm this guy, like more is better in my mind. Like, and so it's taken me a long time to learn to hold myself back a little bit and be like, no, it's okay. Like, it's probably better actually just to like chill out a little bit. And it's the same with like work and gym, everything. Like I've had to have been like, no, it's actually probably okay for me to have 2 hours to watch TV in the evening. I can do that. I don't have to be working or doing social media and all of this. So sometimes, yeah, having that bit of backtracking is important and better for growth than trying to do it all at the time. So in terms of deloading, I'm deloading this week. So my last one was 5 weeks ago. I tend to accumulate training volume for 5 weeks and training hard. And then I take a deload week. And my deload weeks generally look like the same or similar exercises are completed. So I used to be very stringent with doing the same exercises because any novelty could create kind of muscle damage, and muscle damage is the opposite of repairing and growing and reducing fatigue. But now sometimes I will incorporate new movements just to try them out and just be extra cautious about pushing those too hard. So this week is all set up around reducing fatigue, maintaining fitness, not about kind of anything else. Like, people will try and have a variety of ways to continue training hard to, I don't know what they're trying to do. They're just trying to get around the fact that they need to have a light week in the gym, an easy week in the gym. So I find the best for me is to reduce both training intensity in terms of relative intensity, so training far away from failure, and also volume. And for bodybuilding, volume, and for muscle growth, volume is a key aspect, and it's the driving force of fatigue. So that definitely wants to be reduced. I would objectively reduce it to around maintenance volume if we're talking about that, but it tends to be kind of like a couple of sets, 1 to 2 sets off my first week of training, which is normally near enough like a minimum effective dose of volume, and like the lowest I need to create an overload response in terms of hypertrophy in regards to volume. I'm saying it thinking this all sounds really convoluted and like complicated. It's normally around 2 sets per muscle group during that, like per exercise, sorry, during that week. And I keep the frequency the same generally. Sometimes I'll reduce the frequency just because life, and I want to go to the gym less, or I've had a tattoo and I can't go initially to the gym. But the volume is brought down to maintenance levels. Frequency can be reduced a little bit. And I just go in there and basically go and get some blood flow in the muscle groups and make sure that I'm not stressing myself unnecessarily during that week. And that helps maintain fitness levels a little bit better than not going at all. And also seems to help reduce fatigue a little bit more because you're getting blood flow into the muscle groups that you're training. You could just take a week off. Some people do, but I do find when people do that, they tend to come back with poorer technique and poorer execution, and they feel a little bit off and their strength is a bit down when it should be up. It should be better than the week of the first mesocycle previous. And I tend to find people recover a little bit better when they also go to the gym, and it keeps routine and habits, which for a lot of people is an important aspect too. So that is how my deloads tend to look. Sorry, that was a little bit
no.
messy.
I was gonna like discuss the idea of convolution there, because kind of like you have a very clear understanding, like we all do, as to what kind of level of training volume, which is essentially the work you do right in your training sessions throughout the week, what you need to do in order to stimulate, X versus what you need to do in order to stimulate Y or Z or whatever fucking letter you want to choose, right? This is, despite the kind of the implication is all, convoluted. This is something that I think as you start to develop your understanding of resistance training, you start to develop your understanding of how your own body reacts. This is something that we begin to develop, right? As people who are interested in physique development. Don't just take shit that you read on T Nation as verbatim. You need to do fucking, strong lifts 5x5 all the time to build your quads. No, it's like, just take a step back, just and evaluate. Hey, Steve's got a dog. God damn, I got distracted.
It's Ada,
Sorry,
right?
she was distracting me a lot. I was like, I'm just going to eat you on my lap.
You know what? Screw training volume for a minute. Steve's got a
She's
dog.
famous, by the way. Your dog as well.
Dog's famous. I've seen her running down the hallways. What's the dog's name? Ada, right?
Yeah.
How's Ada doing it? How's she
You
doing?
basically can't see her now because she's just black.
Yeah,
so she's
just black. I can see
Just-
like,
just her
there's
eyes,
the snoot, there's the eyes. What's Ada's MRV, Stephen?
I feel like she can go forever, to be honest. She's very slow twitch.
Very slow twitch in nature.
Not very muscular. Not very
muscular, no, but very, very endurance based, right?
Yeah.
Very endurance based. And but like Ada, for example, knows how far she needs to run before it's like, fuck me, Steve, I want to go home now. And she'll probably tell Steve, yo, Steve, bro, we gotta fucking end this walk, dude. I want to deload. Yeah, fucking hell. So for those of you, again, for the people who are listening right now that perhaps aren't aware of kind of where your volume needs to be in the context of muscle growth or deloading, this is stuff that essentially, when you're working with a coach, like hopefully with one of us three very handsome bastards, they will help you develop that understanding, right? How far can we push your level of hard training in the context of muscle growth in order to stimulate the best adaptations? Okay, how far do we need to draw it back in the context of deloading in order to fuel you for future muscle growth, in order to prepare you for that? All of these terms, perhaps whilst now at the moment aren't maybe particularly, maybe they're not like kind of slotting into place within your gray matter. They will become a little more comprehensive as you start to, which I'd recommend, and Steve and Julian, I'm sure would, work with a coach to help you identify these issues, right? And this is something, again, that Steve is very, just to bring the attention back to Steve's prominence in the online coaching space at the moment. Steve has regular podcasts with very influential minds in the industry in which he explores all of these topics. So how long has your podcast been going for now, Steve, the Revive Stronger podcast? How many episodes deep are we?
So it's coming to 300 episodes.
God damn.
I don't know who the 300th episode is with, actually. I'm trying to think. We're just on 298. So it'll be 299 will be 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 Part 2. Oh, yes. And then 300 actually exclusive is, but some people might know because they're following, is 𝗀𝗽𝗃𝗃𝗃 with 𝘁cie𝗱𝗆. They're doing a debate, basically.
Nice, man.
Debate roundtable. So
yeah.
I basically don't speak. I just sit there and they just go back and forth.
just let the mic do the talking. But yeah, I mean, if you could get 𝗀𝗃𝗃 and 𝗵𝘃 on or something like that, like, I don't know, those roundtables are always really cool, with 𝗵𝘃 and Mike and Eric Helms and stuff. And like, yeah.
Yeah, guys,
bombs.
For those of you at home, like if you're looking to, like, if all of these terms at the moment as to what we've been describing as like kind of alien to you, fucking hell. The Revive Stronger podcast is the way to go. I'm sure me and Julian are quite prepared to, I say admit, I'm not admitting it as if this is like something I'm ashamed of, prepared to disclose the fact that our coaching journey, right? Vegan muscle coach, kind of herbivore performance, was all kind of initiated through Steve's kind of presence on social media. His podcast in the early days was such a prominent impact on our lives, and it's fucking free. That's the best bit. The people that Steve has on his podcast are posted to the internet for free. If all of these kind of terms right now are kind of maybe a bit kind of, maybe you don't know what we're talking about, just type in Revive Stronger Podcast volume, Revive Stronger Podcast deloads. All of that shit will be available for you. And then, episode 300 is coming out soon. Episode 300. That's insane. How long have you been running the podcast for, Steve?
I'm trying to think. When
you didn't remember, so you tried to dodge the question. Like, I don't remember. We had 300 episodes, by the way.
What's 300 divided by the number of weeks in a year? Well, I basically haven't missed an episode since launching it. So like every week an episode comes out. So it's 300
like
weeks.
5 years, 6 years? Kind of.
I think it launched 2015 is when I launched it.
Nice, dude.
So yeah, long time. Ridiculously.
That's impressive
long time,
shit,
actually.
man. Impressive.
I don't know how I keep coming up with topics to talk about. There's a shitload to cover, basically.
I guess I'll just get someone on who knows a lot, so I can just not make up a topic.
I'll just get two people on, like Lyle and Mike fucking Israel, and be like, "Hey guys, I know you don't really like each other.
Go at it.
This is episode 200. Have a go." Brilliant.
I don't. Julian, you said 𝗵𝘃 and 𝗀𝗃𝗃. You'd like them on a round table.
Yeah, that would be cool because you already had a 𝗀𝗃𝗃 and Mike, right?
Yeah, I don't know what do 𝗀𝗃𝗃 and 𝗵𝘃 not see eye to eye on quite a bit because I'm not aware of it, but I have had 𝗀𝗃𝗃 dig a little bit at 𝗵𝘃 on basically I had a Q&A and he asked a question about what was it, ultrasound, and I was like, this looks like an inside joke with you and 𝗵𝘃. I don't know what this is about.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like, of course, we can say 𝗀𝗃𝗃 has a somewhat experimental, like somewhat new way of doing things in the industry, and 𝗵𝘃 is really about progressive overload and going into the research, and it seems like a fun mix-up to me.
Yeah, 𝗵𝘃 versus 𝗀𝗃𝗃. Well, I say versus is the wrong word. Stop it. I'm trying to cause conflict. 𝗵𝘃 and 𝗀𝗃𝗃. That'll be a good one. I don't want to. I'm not here to govern the direction of the Revive Stronger podcast. That's not what I'm here to do.
It's just what I see online. Or actually, Doug reached out to me saying he wanted to debate with Mike, so I didn't know about that.
Interesting. Very interesting stuff. Can we have a snippet as to what we can expect from the debate on the round table?
Yes. So it's mostly Mike, who read the latter half of his 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃's book, asking questions, basically like, is that really what you meant? That doesn't quite make sense to me. So it's like 5 different topics they cover, but they mostly see eye to eye on some things, a few things not. So yeah, it was mostly Mike asking Doug questions like, with a skeptical eye.
Nice. Mike's got a great skeptical eye. It's like, when Mike's being skeptical. It's like, whoa, hang on. I better get my research ready, Mike. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Hang on a sec. Cool, man. So just wrap things off here. Wrap things up. Steve has recently forayed into the world of plant-based nutrition and has delved deeper and deeper into it. So, seeing as how we're the vegan muscle cast, we're gonna pick Steve's brains. We're not gonna pick them until he fucking dies. But what's your experience been like?
Vegan of you.
That would be very vegan and traditionally vegan muscle cast of me.
Morgan's the most dangerous vegan out there. In the last episode, he said, "I'm gonna kill seagulls if they dive bomb me." So,
and then I fucking falcon punched them with a sound effect. If I had a soundboard up now, I'd be slamming that sucker. But I'm not, because I've not got a soundboard yet. We haven't got the budget. we're just on Zoom, man. Just keeping it real over here, keeping it real, raw. It's all good. So, what's your experience been like with the foray into the world of plant-based nutrition? What inspired your intent to want to pursue it in the first place?
Cool. So I was probably first influenced because my girlfriend is vegetarian. She's vegan now. She was vegetarian for basically her whole life. And about a couple of years ago, she was like doing veganuary and just kind of extended it and continued to extend it because she never thought she'd be able to go vegan. And respect to her, because she is like you guys, like truly sticks to it and like looks at all the products and makes sure everything is like ethical and vegan. And she doesn't like just fall into like, oh, I like cheese, so I'm just going to eat cheese. Like, she loves cheese, but she sticks to the vegan stuff, even though apparently it's not very good. I've had bits of it, and I don't eat a lot of cheese. I'll tell you what, anyway,
just to interrupt it here, Steve, you take yourself down to Morrison's and you get their cheddar substitute. Oh my God. I eat it like it's pre-grated as well, which is the best bit. I eat it I'm in like a deficit at the moment. I eat it by the fucking handful out of the fridge in the morning. Just to let my greens powder go down a little more smoothly. But no, sorry. Carry on, dude. Carry on.
So yeah, I need to tell Charlotte that actually, but Morrison's, they're not really London. Like, they're just not.
Are they not?
No, you get no Morrison's in London.
No.
It's like Lidl, Aldi, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, here and there.
It's too uptown. It's too uptown for London. Come down to Barry, dude. There's one on every fucking street corner.
So yeah, anyway, so she was getting more and more into it. So initially, to be very honest, it was more of a, like, someone I love has taken a deep interest into this. I should really be considering that a bit more. And so then I started to look into it as well. I just tried to identify like how can I incorporate this into my lifestyle, because, and I'm sure you guys, I would imagine you guys agree that veganism isn't superior for bodybuilding or health.
Nope.
It can be, but it's certainly not. But likewise, having a non-vegan diet, like an omnivore diet, isn't superior for health or bodybuilding either. It all depends on how it, like, getting the right, like, we need to get the right macros, like it's right micros and macros in that case. It's just a little bit more complex because you're removing things, like any diet. If like you start removing things, you have to be careful with replacing them somehow, or complementing them with other things within the diet as well. So it's definitely, there's more to it. So like, big respect to you guys, because it's more effort. But I also imagine, like a lot of things, like for me, tracking on MyFitnessPal and hitting my macros is easy. And I imagine once you've done vegan bodybuilding for an extended period of time, it's easy. Like, to you, I imagine it's not a big effort. For me, still, I'm in that transitional phase where I'm like, oh shit, like I have to watch the fiber. I have to make sure like this is in the right place, what have you. So yeah, that's where my initial interest came, was from my girlfriend, looking into it further and understanding that my reason behind it is more ethical, because that's kind of, for me, and because I have quite an evidence-based scientific kind of mindset as well. Like, I like to understand where I'm going with things and have the right kind of thought process behind it. So definitely like more of an ethical reason. And I'm still in the transitional period towards that, because I also don't know where my ethics completely stand with it, because I do find it easy to be black and white, like you're either vegan or you're not. And that, I mean, it's a definitely black and white thing. Like, you can't be like vegan and you eat animal products. But I do like the idea of there being a bit of a kind of gradients here. It's not like you're either a carnivore or you're vegan. It's a case of like, you might be more plant-based with a little bit of animal product. And at the moment, that's what I'm comfortable with. So I'm not
Cool.
vegan. I mostly eat vegetarian. Very, very rarely do I eat meat, unless it's like, sometimes it's just when you go and eat out and it's like, it just, I don't know, it's something you really want to eat. That's the honest truth of it. It's something I really want to eat that's on the menu that maybe fits my nutritional goals the best as well. But where possible, I will stick to being as vegetarian, and also in terms of ethics, try and look into like, how can, if I am eating any animal products, how can this be more ethically sourced? And also in terms of, I think we've spoken about this, Morgan, in terms of animals and which ones may be more ethical to eat in terms of how they feel things. So like fish and things in the sea tend to not, I don't know, I think it's like, what are they called? Prawns and things like this, like their intelligence or what have you, their ability to like feel and think about their loved ones.
Quite
really
limited.
that ability. Yeah, exactly. Whereas like a pig, highly intelligent creature, very much like feels empathy if it's like mum gets taken away or like children get like, it knows that shit is happening and it's awful like that. So I really just try and stick away from any pork and things like this, just because that feels really wrong to me in that regard. So yeah, that's where I am with it.
Hey man, it's no, again, I I disclosed this prior to us chatting. It's not an opportunity for us to be like, hey Steve, fuck you. Fuck off, you prick. It's like, no, it's just like,
I felt like this was like trying to not be a bad person. Like, yeah, it's just not pork, you know. I'm trying. No, but it's a good effort, man. I think for people who already track their macros, it's like not then is I'm not trying to say it's better, like it's the next step, but it's like I already tracked all my food. So I was like, well, if I just track this instead and then remove this, then it's like I'm vegan, it's fine, you know. So I think for people who don't even do bodybuilding or fitness or don't track macros, then it seems like a harder thing to do, maybe.
Absolutely. I think I really appreciate your honesty there, Steve, because I think a lot of people and again I hope people aren't interpreting this as a call out, and I really hope it's not, because it's just an opportunity to discuss, you know, some of the difficulties we all experience when moving to a direction in life which perhaps is more ethically aligned with what we believe in you know, intrinsically, in comparison to what it is that we've been raised on up until this point, right? It's like, it's very hard to undo like 25, 26, like 30 years worth of existence when we've been doing X to then say, hey, I need to do Y. So to understand from a, you know, from a very competitive and very successful bodybuilder's perspective and a very successful coach's perspective, what it's like right now to make those switches and make those changes, and how it kind of interacts with your own beliefs, and how that's relatable to most people. You know, most people, when they when they want to pursue a plant-based diet or a vegan lifestyle, it's a very difficult transition because there's so much to consider, right? So to get it from someone's perspective like yourself, who is again such a prominent figure in the industry right now, I think is very, very relatable to a lot of people right now who may be struggling with the idea of moving over, or maybe kind of there's the idea of, I need to go from this kind of omnivorous diet to vegan overnight, otherwise it's fucked. No, you can make a very slow transition, and you can do it for a myriad of reasons. You can do it because maybe your partner wants to do it and you want to support them. You can maybe do it because you want to align yourself with your ethical beliefs a little more in line, but perhaps the pursuit with which you're taking it right now isn't perhaps as easy as you once perceived it to be. There's lots of different directions you can take, and ultimately anyone can do it. And Steve is integrating it into his life right now, which I think is a very, very admirable thing for one to do, especially seeing as how one has existed, especially in the, you know, in the bodybuilding industry, where it's like, hey, chicken, broccoli, and rice for like 6 meals a day. That's what you got to do. The internet says so. T-Nation again. When you've got to like unravel all of those teachings in your own mind and bring about your own perspective, it's very hard to do so. So again, just not to throw yourself into the deep end and be like, fuck you. It's just like, hey, Steve, what are your thoughts on this right now? Because, hey, like the ghost lifestyle, vegan protein, right? Holy shit. I know that you've been all about that stuff, right? What's your favorite flavor, man?
I have gone through a ridiculous number of serving like tubs of that, because I have it twice a day. I have two of my meals are just like protein oats with that vegan protein powder. So
yes,
makes up like a large proportion of my diet at the moment. So the milk chocolate, is it? I haven't had it in ages because they haven't been in stock.
They're always out of
milk
stock, man.
Yeah, it's awful. So that's my favorite, which I haven't had in ages, but I've been having the peanut butter one.
Oh yes, I did.
The gingerbread one's good too.
I had the gingerbread. Have you tried the coconut ice cream? I was fond of it for like a day, and then it was like, oh wow, this is shit.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah.
I put them all in oats, so maybe that changes it. I don't drink many of them like as a shake.
No.
So yeah, the Ghost is, from what I've gathered, the best like plant-based. But in terms of like, I would pick, just in terms of like taking out of the equation vegan or not or what have you, vegan protein powders in oats are objectively better than like a whey protein or anything else. So if anyone's just like on the fence about that, and also in terms of the best things I've had, so the Ghost protein, and then soy like chunks, they're great. Like they may also mimic chicken fairly well, and they can be incorporated into meals just like chicken. They sell them in Iceland, just soy chunks, like meat-free ones. I just can microwave them, roast them, chuck them in dishes. Like they work really nicely. I'm sure you guys have spoken about it, but from my perspective, those are like some of the easiest, like, because soy, full amino acid profile, no issues there. The Ghost, they blend it, so you've got the full amino acid profile there. So the only thing you have to deal with is the fiber that rocks up behind it.
Yeah, but you can't have soy, bro. You can't have soy because boobs.
Fucking hell, yeah. Thankfully I'm not in that mind.
Yo, just to wrap this up, if you've not tried the Richmond meat-free sausages,
I have.
Oh my goodness me, what do you reckon?
I prefer vegetarian or vegan sausages to, like I said, I don't eat pork really, so I haven't eaten like a pork sausage in a long time. So yeah, once it's like the vegan cheese. My girlfriend, she's so long not had cheese, she's got used to, like, it's like ignorance is bliss in that sense. So yeah, I'm a big fan, like the sausages, and you could argue they potentially are healthier in terms of, like, I don't know, pork sausages, loads of saturated fat, blah blah blah. Might not be ideal. They're often leaner when you get the vegetarian and vegan ones. So
so we got a Steve Hall approval here, people. Steve Hall approves of the Richmond sausages. So fuck off the pork. Get the Richmond meat-free stuff, baby. Have you got the Richmond meat-free in Norway, Julian?
No, we're getting more and more meat-free stuff, and some of it's pretty good. Like, I think a lot of vegans say everything's good, just go vegan, but there's some shit replacement foods, and there are some pretty good ones. And like a lot of the soy stuff is really good, and a lot of it mimics chicken quite well, like you said.
Some of it's fucking awful. If you like,
a lot of the pea-based stuff is a bit weird. It's like, am I eating sand or something, or what's going on?
Yeah, guys, if you've just like entered the world of like plant-based nutrition and you've picked up a really like bad pack of sausages, don't base its entire worth on that. Because like Julian said, some of it's dog shit, some of it's awful, right? So just be persistent, like Steve, like Julian, like myself. Just be persistent, man. Keep pushing, keep going against the grain, right? And eventually you'll land on those Richmond vegan sausages and the Richmond bacon. Oh my God. Provided you fry them in a pan with a bit of oil. Oh God, you got bacon. You got bacon in a sandwich. Chuck some ketchup in there. Fuck. And you're sorted. Bish, bash, bosh. End of the podcast. Steve, thank you so much for joining. I can't believe we had you on as our first guest. Thank you for being so open, honest, and discussing your past. It's been a pleasure, sir. Really, really appreciate you being on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully this goes down well. You don't have, I don't know, all vegan followers and they all come at me and they're like, they're trying to turn me vegan now. I'm slowly moving that way. It's all right.
and that's ultimately I guess the biggest takeaway from that segment is the slow transition to hopefully a lifestyle that does incorporate more plant-based activities. Wicked. Closing statements. I've been Vegan Muscle Coach, and I'm a prick. Julian?
I've been Julian. I've been chilling here and just letting the talk flow, and it's been a pleasure, guys.
Over to you, Steve.
I'm Steve, and this is Ada.
And that's Ada.
I'm strangling.
Steve's a dog strangler.
I'm not strangling.
You know what Steve is? Me. Jacked as fuck. Thank you for attending the Vegan Muscle Cast. It's been a pleasure to have you all here. Steve, thank you so much for being on. Love you lots. Thank you, guys.